There we go. Second time's the
Okay.
charm. Let's get the Facebook groups in here, and then we can officially start the show. All right, we got our spinning wheels here. All right, welcome in, welcome in. It is Tuesday night. That means it's time for an episode of Building the Broncos. I am Nick Kendell, joined by Carl Dumler. Carl, and I don't want to share too much, but I know you're feeling a little bit under the weather. Scott is not here today, so everybody in the chat, behave. It is his 24th wedding anniversary today, so shout out to him and his wife, of course. So we're going to hang out today. We're going to talk Broncos. This is the last Tuesday until we have actual football to talk about, regular season football. You know, not that preseason nonsense, but some actual football. And coming out to my neck of the woods out in Seattle. But Carl, I don't know how much you want to share, but I know you're feeling a little under the weather, so you might have to jettison for a bit, or we might have to cut it short. But other than that, what's good.
Yeah, no, life's fine. I mean, things just happen. And unfortunately, some Arby's and I did not agree with each other.
You had too much of the meats.
Yep. And so I'm feeling pretty good. I've been putting the water back all day, trying to keep myself hydrated. And so feeling pretty good that way. Hoping maybe even after this, I can feel up to going for a run.
Oh,
we will see how that goes. Yeah,
but not outside. You've been running all day.
I definitely will be staying near my house in case anything goes down. But that's enough of that. It's Broncos week. It's finally season's here. We've now got at least the next 4 months straight of football, which is incredible to say. I know your Iowa kicked it off this week and had some offense. What in the world? Where'd that come from, man?
I don't know. I don't believe it. If they can do it against Iowa State, then I'll believe it. But yeah, I know it's pretty good. Crazy amount of incredible catches this week too for the game. I mean, just Travis Hunter, of course, but you had USC amazing catches. There's a couple crazy interceptions, just a lot of fun talent. So football is back, right? College football here, and Florida State, what's going on out there? But yeah, we're going to be talking obviously Broncos today as the Denver Broncos head off up to my neck of the woods out here in Seattle and face off against the Seahawks. Second week one in Seattle road game in 3 years. Obviously, Denver had that very unfortunate game, the Nathaniel Hackett, Russell Wilson debut, and the field goal that clock management that didn't make any sense. But hey, that's in the past now. We got Bo Nix here. We got Sean Payton. It's a different Seahawks team. It's a different Broncos team. We'll see what happens. If anybody's going to be at the game, I will be there. I'm going to be heading down. I don't know, probably around noon. I think it's a 1 o'clock kickoff out here, but should be a good time. So let's say hello to people in the chat as we're starting to trickle in and the show's really getting rolling here. We got our guy David Youngkin coming in, says evening Bronco family. Evening to you, David. Great to see you. Got Mike S as well saying, what's up, Nick, Carl, Scott, Dylan, and Broncos country. We're just hanging out. We're excited for some Broncos football week 1. Denver Luke says Scott should do a WWE show with Zach. Yeah, he talks WWE to me, and it's in one ear, out the other. I don't got much time for that. Never got too much into it. My neighbor had some of the 3-foot stuffed WWE character things that you could wrestle with. That was the extent of my wrestling knowledge. He had a Goldberg, I think was the guy's name. But God bless you. Plenty of wrestling in the trenches coming up here for the Broncos, who should be one of the top 15 teams in the trenches in the NFL this season. You think that's crazy to say?
I don't think it's crazy. I might have a couple of those guys on our topic tonight, talking about trench guys.
Yeah, totally. And I did not close my door, so if you hear a noise in the background, that's my water heater. If it's loud, let me know. I can go shut the door there. We got our guy Papa Bear, David McElrath, getting the ball rolling with the super chats. If you guys want Carl and I to continue on the show, or heck, the more super chats, maybe we'll make Carl have to hold it in if he has a food poisoning about here. But he says, good evening, Broncos country. Nick, Carl, Deacon, Scott, 12-5, Buckham 3 times, MHH for life, Denver Broncos for life, Knicks for 6, Seattle
SEAL team Knicks.
SEAL team Knicks. Okay. Yeah, but all the caps kind of throwing me off there. And Nixing to find out. We are Nixing to find out for sure. So thank you so much, David McElrath, for the super chat and keeping the lights on here, hanging out with Carl and I. Carl, this is we've been doing these shows since
17.
was it 17? It was 16. It was the end of the year in 2016,
Okay,
into the draft for the 2017 year. So
yeah,
it's about time we covered a team that had some excitement, and it definitely feels like this team is heading in the right direction. Working on good bones. Jetty Splash comes in with a smiley face. Good to see you, Jetty, with a new picture there. Can't tell what's going on, but appreciate you. Talking about the Iowa Hawkeyes, Dennis Woods in here. Evening, everyone. Go Hawks. Chase Wellner with the fist bump. Good to see you. Got our guy Mark in here. Mark Hoynak says, I'm ready for some football. I hate the offseason. Well, Mark, I hate the dead period, but I do love the lead up to the NFL draft and just all the team building aspects and just the philosophy with that. But once it's May, terrible. Yeah. I mean, May through August, catch me outside. I'm not going to be doing too much football stuff. Yeah, literally. Yeah. So, yeah, football is here, and it should be a lot of fun. We got 69 Skater Mike, Wild Rift, coming in here. Says, evening, gents. Good evening to you. What a name. Sue Gibson says, Pete Schrager has the Broncos going to the playoffs. Yeah, I'm probably going to write about that tomorrow. I don't know if you saw that. He had the Broncos. They announced their AFC teams, and he was high on the Broncos. Maybe it was last year as well. The Sean Payton there. He's a big Sean Payton believer. He doubled down on that, and he had them with the 5th seed. So not even squeaking in with the 7th seed, but the number 1 wild card team, the 5th seed. So that would be amazing. I mean, obviously, it doesn't have Denver. I'm assuming they had the Chiefs winning the AFC West, but that would be pretty fantastic because right now the line for Denver is at 5.5. A lot of people, I think, Cynthia Frohman had an article. The formula that they had Denver winning 6.1 games or something, 6.3 games. So that's a far cry from the 5 seed. I mean, what do you think the record has to be for a 5 seed? 11 wins? I mean, is Papa Bears 12-5 in the mix for the 5 seed there? I mean, you really have to win double digits for sure.
Yeah, you think I'm trying to think of last year what the teams had to do to make the playoffs at those seeds. So I know like Cleveland made it, and I think they had 10 wins. Houston made it with 10 wins, but they made it on their division win. Mm-hmm. Pittsburgh made it, and they were 10-7 or 9-8.
They were not very good.
Yeah, not 9-8.
They're mediocre.
And then you had Miami, who was, I think, 11-6, and they were the 5 seed.
Yeah.
So I think that's the low mark. You have to at least hit 11 to stand a chance to get into that kind of spot. Yeah. Maybe some of these other divisions will eat each other a little bit. AFC North, all 4 teams, you could make an argument for them at this point. AFC East with the Bills, Miami, the Jets. All 3 of those teams are going to be pretty competitive. So, like I said, I think they could almost kind of eat themselves a little bit in those division games. But then again, AFC West, you never know. Chargers with their new head coach, with Harbaugh, usually he produces teams quickly just because of his philosophy of building the trenches, becoming a powerful running team. You can win a lot of games with that and just disciplined defense. I'm not really worried about the Raiders. I mean, we still can't beat them. Hopefully this is the year we break that curse, right, everybody? But talent-wise, they are definitely bottom of the barrel here. We're talking AFC. So, it's hard to see, but obviously there's a few believers out there, I think mostly because of Sean Payton and this coaching staff, more so than the talent on the team. Just they are. I think they're a pretty good coaching staff. I think they could help elevate this team to a couple wins that otherwise they wouldn't have done. And I love what I'm hearing about the locker room and the closeness of all these players. Mm-hmm. I think James Palmer was talking about that today. He's talked to some players that have been in the league for a long time. They all said this is the closest they've ever been with their teammates. And that's great to hear. Now, does that translate to wins on the field? We'll see. I don't quite know yet, but it can't hurt. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they dealt with adversity last season, right? It's kind of the Russell Wilson situation in the locker room to be on the other side of that now. And nobody's really counting on the Broncos. I mean, even Broncos country, I know we got our 12-5 fans in here, but it's a season where we're looking beyond the record, I think, for our goals and achievements. Now, they believe internally, and if they start doing that on the field against, week 1, right? Seahawks on the road. I mean, Denver's schedule is not that hard the first 8 weeks, and after that, it ramps up crazy intensity. So we're going to find out about these guys soon. If they start off slow, it might be a long season, but you never know, right? This is why you play the games, and we're Nixon to find out, right? Michael Ronquillo says, good evening, Nick and Carl. I'm building the Broncos. Bow time, believe. God bless Bo Nix, and go Bo Broncos. Bo. Put a bow on it. Thank you so much, Michael. We appreciate you coming with the support. I hope you're doing it well out there in Tucson. We got Patrick coming in. Patrick, I am on a hunt. He asked about the Broncos for breakfast hat. I told Chad that if we don't have an answer on this soon, it was out of stock, that I'm going to send you my hat because you deserve it for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm working on it. I did not forget about you, Patrick. Good to see you. Daniel Berry Sports says, hey, how you doing? Great to see you. Greg Smith's in the house. Bella says the Athletic has a good read on Bo Nix. I'll have to check that out. The Athletic does good work. Jay Roper coming and give me a hard time. Yeah, Nick was high on DJ Ugalele. Yeah, I like 5-star quarterbacks until they don't look very good. But, I mean, who are the other 2 5-stars in that class? It was CJ Stroud and somebody else who's pretty good. So pay attention to those 5-star quarterbacks. They typically tend to be pretty – I mean, guys come out of nowhere too, of course, but we like those 5-stars. They don't always hit, though. Gosh, who's the quarter? Weigman, Texas A&M didn't look very good, but pretty good indicator. It's kind of like first-round quarterbacks, right? And I'll be honest with you, Jay and everybody, I don't watch high school football. So I just like, okay, Clemson's had 2 superstar quarterbacks in a row. Now they got another 5-star guy that's a big athlete with an arm. I'm interested. Not interested anymore.
Right. Well, it's kind of like his first couple starts with Clemson when Trevor Lawrence was hurt there for a couple games. He looked good.
Yeah.
I think they were both 300-yard passing games. And
one
it
on the
just
road
was
at
like,
Notre
wow.
Dame, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just everybody's kind of going, okay, they've got their next guy. And then he never could replicate it again. So it's hard to tell.
Sample size is so key. You know, like some people will call me a wet blanket, but let's say Bo Nix goes into Seattle next week and he throws for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 pick. People are going to be crowning on, which I can't fault anybody for getting excited, but I'm going to be saying, pump the brakes. Let's see multiple iterations of defense. Let's grow that sample size because anybody can do good in one game. But when you stack them, that's when you start to have great players. Speaking of great, Phil McLaughlin says, good evening, Nick and Carl and Deacon Scott. I hope I am as happy Sunday evening as I was Saturday watching Iowa actually score more than 10. Yeah, God, I didn't believe it. I had to pinch myself. The first half looked bad, but we're on the roll now. Eric coming in here with the support. Great to see you, Eric. Looks like we got a new name in here. But did you change your name? What's going on? Bella. Is your okay? Well, we got Bella. Josh Reynolds said some promising words about Bo Nix to start the season. Yeah, he did. Yeah, of course. They seem to really like Bo Nix in there, and there is some belief in him. No doubt. I mean, he was under the spotlight. He was the number 1. Talk about 5 stars. I think he was the number 1 quarterback recruit in his class. Went to the obviously his alma mater. No, his father's class. He's in a what do you call that? A legacy. That's the word there. And a lot of spotlight there in the SEC. Has some good games there, and then transfers out to Oregon. A lot of eyeballs on him at Oregon as well. A lot of hype, and yeah, he's seen pressure. So excited to see what he can do here, and I'm happy to hear that players are talking him up. KB82 Kenneth Booker says, "What's up, fellas? It's Chris Abrams-Drain going to be this year's Jaquan McMillan." It's possible. That's a deep shot. And the one thing I will say about Chris Abrams-Drain is I'm a little bit concerned about his tackling overall and the physicality there in the run game and the quick pass game, being able to tackle guys in the open field. But Mathis is hurt. You have an old guy out there in Levi Wallace, and if Riley Moss doesn't deliver, maybe Chris Abrams-Drain is tossed in and is a revelation down the stretch. I think that is possible. I mean, for sure.
I think my other concern with him, height does matter a little bit here. You know, he's 5'10", and there's so many practice reports where it would say Chris Abrams-Drain right there in coverage, but the guy caught it. Mm-hmm. And so I think there is something there that I know a couple inches shouldn't seem like it's that big of a deal, but it does seem to matter in a game of inches. So I like him. I really do. I think he can be a great playmaker for the Broncos, and I think they can find a role for him moving forward. But I think for this year, you're kind of hoping he can stay on the bench. Obviously, you're hoping Riley Moss can emerge as a great number 2, and you're hoping that he's going to have an injury if he's coming in. And I mean, like I said, I like him. I liked his tape. It's just I'm hoping not to see him much this year.
Yeah. It would mean that something went wrong or he's really stepping up there. But we'll see what happens on that front. We got Jabs in the house. How's it going, fellas? Good to see you again another year. Yeah, right around the corner. We're on the doorstep. Hopefully this is a playoff year. We'll see. We got our guy Troy coming in, of course. 999 says, what do you predict for Moss after seeing him at Iowa? I don't have to go down the full scouting report path here, but Iowa plays such a cloud coverage with off coverage where they're like ball hunting downhill to try to trigger on those underneath routes. And you don't see a lot of man in phase coverage. So it's almost like they're playing four safeties somewhat, where they're trying to trigger downhill and take the ball away. And they don't think that college quarterbacks, specifically in the Big Ten West, as it was, can hit a lot of those deeper throws. They're like, we want you to throw it underneath. We'll rally and tackle. And once you get a little bit greedy, we're going to take the ball away. So you didn't see a lot of press coverage. You didn't see a lot of man coverage. It was pretty consistent. And Moss took the ball away a lot. Good recovery speed. They tossed him out there as I think he was a blue shirt even, not even a red shirt. Just a guy that they brought in, and I think as a true freshman, they tossed him out there against Purdue, and he got walloped. He stunk in that true freshman game on the road at Purdue. And God, it would have been 2018, 2019, something like that. And kept coming back there. Good athlete. The fact that he was able to grow from that game and still is out there, took the ball away a lot. And that's my prediction for Moss. That's the big one on this team. Last year, obviously Denver had that crazy run starting with the Cleveland game. I don't remember which one it was, where they had, maybe Cleveland was the last game, but they had just not unprecedented turnover rates, specifically with recovering fumbles that we hadn't seen since 1991. Does that happen again? Maybe. But with Moss, we're looking for taking the ball away. And you best believe teams are going to target him early and often because they're not going to be throwing at Surtain. They're going to try to throw it at number 33 over there at the other boundary corner spot.
Yeah, so like our topic today, possible breakout candidates, he is on my list. Like you said, he's going to get many, many opportunities. And I do expect him to get burned a few times. It's just the name of the game, especially being the number 2. But I do expect, like you said, there's going to be some turnover-worthy plays that really make a difference. And so he could be one of those players that helps you win a game and helps you lose a game, or not helps, but causes you to lose a game on the other side of it that you should have maybe won because he decided to maybe take a chance, jump one of those underneath routes, and they did a double move on him or something like that. So I do worry quite a bit about this secondary just because you got a whole lot of new pieces, pretty much. Well, I guess half of them. PJ Locke is back. He kind of started last year, kind of not. I'll count him as a starter from last year, and Patrick Surtain on the other side. But still, like I said, it's a pretty brand new group working together. There has to be some incredible communication back there. So I expect an up and down year, but I think by the end of it, he's going to have more ups than downs.
I hope so. A lot of questions in that secondary and that cornerback 2 spot. I mean, he's fighting for his job because if Denver's picking anywhere from 8 to 15, we are in prime cornerback spot in the draft there. And cornerback 2 would be a viable spot, especially you're probably assuming they're paying Surtain at that point. So having a second contract paired with a rookie, not a bad way to go. And it looks like a pretty good cornerback class. Yeah, I did want to give a happy birthday to Keith Bruckman as well. Good to see you. We got Pearl Heater says hi, counting down the days till Sunday. Absolutely. Tyler Brooks, undefeated Super Bowl. Yeah, go Broncos. Love it. Undefeated until they aren't. And then we got Wagner on the other side. So let's go 4-13 at best, realistically. I don't think at best is realistic. I mean, you're probably saying 3 wins is probably the worst. And probably with it being that far down that path, probably 12 wins is the best. That's a wide variance. We're talking probabilities there on the end of the bell curve. But yeah, we'll see. One at a time, right? Not to be super cliche. Charlie's in the house. I'm pretty happy with the team. They will grow. You should be. I do know. I see Doug said it's still Doug. It's not Bella. Well, didn't want to assume Bella, Doug, but good to see you in here. I know you're a big Bo Nix guy, big fan as well. Ben Lee with a good question here. How secure do you think Vance Joseph's job is this year? I'll kick it to you, Carl, before I even take it.
I'd say it's pretty small, honestly. You've got Jim Leonard hanging in the wings that Sean Payton really likes, played for him obviously showed incredible work there in the college game as a defensive coordinator, even as a head coach. So I think if the first 5 weeks kind of goes what we saw last year, I don't think he gets to keep his job this time. I don't expect that to happen. You know, they were part of the problem last year. Brand new scheme. Vance Joseph was trying to mix and match what they were doing before with what he likes to do, and it just wasn't working. And it seems like after those first 5 games, they finally went, okay, you know what? Let's just go with what Vance Joseph is good at. If you're going to get fired, at least do it the way you want to do it. That's the way that coaches should be reacting out there. And so it got better. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't great, but it was much better than it was when we started. Because we were talking historical pace of worst defense ever for those first 5 games. So I think he's pretty secure. But like I said, if the first 5 games, they're really, really struggling, I could see him being that scapegoat at the end of that and saying, all right, let's make that change. Jim Leonard, you're in.
Yeah, it is definitely possible. He does seem like he would be the scapegoat. Now, with that said, the way just the Broncos have been spending wise and resource wise, granted, they're limited there post, Sean Payton trade and especially the Russell Wilson trade, but there's been a lot more expenditures of resources on the offensive side of the ball. And I don't think if the defense is anything better than the 20th best defense in football this season, I think that they probably at least play to their talent level, at least maybe even above that. But I don't think they have a true superstar difference maker on the defensive front, which kind of outside of franchise quarterback, that's the most important thing you can have on a team is a true, if you don't scheme this guy out, he's going to wreck you pass rusher. I don't think Denver has that guy. They got good guys. They got depth. I'm happy about the defensive line, but I don't think they have a dude on the defensive line, like all pro type. So you're looking for that. And then we talked about already, the secondary, the linebackers, question after question. So I see Chad's in here hanging out with us. Good to see you, Chad. And also wanted us to give a hello to our Instagram peeps in here out there as well. So good to see y'all. And good question, Ben. Appreciate you coming in and hanging out with us. And we'll see about Vance Joseph. You mentioned it already. I think he's definitely in line to be the fall guy if the team does not live up to it this season. But I also think that the defense has a lot of questions and holes, and that was always going to happen when you have that much dead cap and missing that many top 100 picks. Unless you're hitting way above average on your day 3 selection, then that's just no way to build a team. That's like building a retirement fund on penny stocks. It's good luck. Josh Packer comes in and says, I'll be there Sunday. Let's go. I'll be there as well. Should be a lot of fun. There's always a lot of, when I was there for the game 2 years ago, there's a lot of Bronco fans as well. And I got to say, maybe it's just coming from Big Ten games and everything, but I thought that the noise factor in the Lumen Field where Seattle plays was a little overrated. I've been in far more ravenous environments in college games than the 12th man.
I've seen a lot of people freaking out about that, of how is Bo Nix going to handle this? He's been in SEC stadiums that hold 80,000 people, screaming college kids that have been drinking since 8 a.m.
I mean, screw that. The night before, they didn't go to sleep.
Yeah, pretty much. And then Pac-12, same thing. I mean, huge stadiums. I'm really not too worried about that element being the reason the Broncos lose. He's been in that environment. If he was coming from some MAC school where there's like 10,000 fans at the game at most on the road, yeah, then we're talking about, okay, this is going to be a huge adjustment for him. But this guy's been center stage since he was an 8th grader. And he's had that target on his back because of his dad being who he is. I just don't see this being as big of an issue. Now, maybe some of the other players, that could be a factor for them, but I just can't see it for him. But we got Phil coming back in again saying, guys, how many rushing yards do you think we need to beat Seattle? Yeah, I think the Broncos, obviously early on in this season especially, need to be a pretty good running team. I mean, you look at this offensive line and how did Sean Payton build this? You got Quinn Miners, which, I mean, I know he was here before Sean Payton got here. But then you add Mike McGlinchey next to him, who's more known for his run blocking than he is his pass blocking. Ben Powers coming over from the Ravens, who have been almost the number 1 rushing team almost every single year. Yeah, he built this offensive line to be a great rushing offense. And Seattle, I would say if they've got a little bit of a weakness on that defense, it is their ability to stop the run up the middle. And so I expect the Broncos to attack that heavily and kind of gets the crowd out of it if you're just kind of rushing 5 yards a time down the field. So that helps. And it helps your quarterback where play action can come off of that, get some deep shots going if you want to. So I think if the Broncos really want to win this one, they got to get 125 rushing yards.
For me, it's going to be more about the efficiency. If they get anything less than 4 yards a carry, stick a fork in them. I just don't think they have the weaponry on the outside to be one-dimensional, and you don't want to do that to a rookie's first start on the road in the NFL for a team that, outside of Sutton, I just don't know who I trust in the pass game. So I think you kind of get the murky middle if you're like averaging 4 to 4.3 yards per carry, where it could go either way. But if you're averaging less than 4 a carry, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be good for the Broncos. So looking for the efficiency in the run game. It'd be nice to get a few explosives as well, because this Denver team, again, talking about the weapons, been a talking point from the national media. Where are these explosives coming from? Because you're probably not going to see Bo Nix pushing the ball vertically too much. It's not going to be the Drew Lock high variance experience where you're going to see what WTF throws followed by some like tight window throws where the arm talent flashes. Not that Nix's arm talent isn't enough. I just don't see the play style translating that way. And with that, most of the time you need weapons who can create after the catch. You can scheme some of that too, and I trust Sean Payton to do that. Screen game can do some of that too, but even questions about that. So that means the run game needs to pop some explosives, and it is hard to do in the NFL. So keeping an eye on there's just not just the yards, but the yards per carry, and can they get those 10-plus yard chunk gains as well? Because I don't think the offense passing game will be super explosive this year. I don't think they'll be the worst, but I just don't think they're going to be great.
Yeah. Do you expect Seattle to try to dare the Broncos to throw the football? I pretty much say we're going to stop the run. Bo Nix, you've got to go beat us with your first NFL game ever.
Going to be a lot of aggressive man coverage. They have Woolen, they got Witherspoon. They invested a lot in the defensive line, and they have Boye Mafe as well, who kind of was coming into his own second half of last season. So I know Nwosu is injured, so he'll be out. So you lose a little bit of a wild card, a jack piece there. But he is. I expect them to be aggressive with their coverage and making Denver say, Bo Nix, beat us deep, beat us in these tight windows outside the hash marks. And we didn't see that too much within the pocket in the drop back game in preseason. Not his fault. Those questions weren't asked, but it's going to have to happen at some point. We got Dennis Woods comes in here, says Denver 6 points, dogs, over under 41.5 thoughts. I'm going to take the under as far as the over under, and I'm going to take Denver to cover there. But I don't gamble. Really, I have to drive out to a reservation out here in Washington to do that. So don't take betting advice from me, because I am not a draft shark or odds shark or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, the last about 5-6 years, Broncos have been hitting the under. I think it was in like 70% of games, in big part because they just haven't had an offense to work much. While I expect the offense to be better this year, I'm not sure about game one on the road. And like I said, I think they're going to play it pretty conservative because I don't think Seattle has a great offense either. They've got some playmakers, but I don't really trust Geno Smith to be a great quarterback. And the offensive line, it's strong on the tackle position, but interior offensive line is bad. So I think Geno Smith's going to have some pressure in his face and maybe could force a couple turnovers that way. Like I said, I think this is going to be a pretty low scoring game. And that's why, like you said, cover the +6. I expect it to be close, 3 points, 4 points, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Mark comes in and says, it's been a while. Good to see you, Mark. He says, as long as Vance Joseph plays man over zone, he should be safe. I mean, they drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba to be a man killer right from the slot. And we were excited. Jaquan had a good year last year, but his second half of the year performance was dramatically worse than the first half. So I don't know. I do worry about the man coverage. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to try to take the ball away. We'll see what it looks like, but I don't know if they will be a more man-heavy team. And I mean, everybody loves to point to Wade Phillips, but you had 3 incredible cornerbacks and 4 incredible edge rushers on that team. It really, the personnel, I mean, Wade was great. Don't get me wrong. Really appreciate his time in Denver, but personnel allowed you to be that kind of defense where I just don't know if Denver has that. I know Denver doesn't have that talent right now, but we'll see what happens. I mean, things can change. We got Troy coming in against. How much of a difference can a coach like Leonard realistically make as a defensive backs coach? I mean, he can make a lot of difference. You can do a lot of different disguising stuff. He can maybe do a better job of coaching some tackling and fundamentals on the back end as well that Denver struggled with the first half of last season. And he's done a really good job everywhere he's gone. So whether it be the stint at Illinois or obviously Wisconsin as well. I mean, Wisconsin's kind of dipping a bit on the defensive side of the ball since Leonard has started to depart, further away from his scheme in there and everybody. So I think he can make a pretty big difference, but we'll see. I mean, he's really well respected, smart guy, and happy he's in Denver.
I really do think coaching makes a huge difference in the NFL. Like NBA, go get your superstars, let them run the field or run the court, I guess. But NFL, you call the right play at the right time. If you coach some of these guys up that otherwise, take them to that next level that they otherwise couldn't have been. I think of like Del Rio when he was here with the Broncos in 2014. He had pretty much the exact same players that we saw the very next year that became a historic defense. Mm-hmm. And they were good in 2014, but nowhere near what we saw in 2015. Yeah. He kind of had this mentality of my players are better than your players. And I'm just going to call rush 4 every single time, drop the other 7 back in coverage. And I'm just going to expect that my talent is that good. Talent matters, obviously. I mean, they were still a top 10 defense, but when you start actually scheming some things up, like we saw in 2015, that's when you go to that next level. And so that's why a guy like Jim Leonard could possibly take this defense to another level. I still don't believe in Vance Joseph completely, but I don't think he's as bad as what they showed last year. I think part of it is they didn't have a ton of talent. Not saying that they have a ton of talent this year, but I think they've got more, especially that defensive line being improved. I know Justin Simmons gone. That hurts for sure. Josie Jewell gone. That's going to hurt for sure. But like I said, I think just because of that improved defensive line, it kind of makes everybody else's job behind them so much easier. When you've got to cover for 4 or 5 seconds, I don't care if you're Champ Bailey. Like somebody's going to get open. You could have 5 Champ Baileys back there. And I mean, some plays are going to be able to hold up, but there's going to be a lot of plays somebody breaks open at some point. So, it's going to be interesting to see what he can do with all these different players. I saw somebody earlier say, this defense doesn't have a Batman. They've got a bunch of Robins.
They have one Batman. Maybe even a Superman.
Yeah.
On the defensive front. Yeah.
Right. But, I always think of, we don't have the Justice League, but we got the Teen Titans. They still did some good things. They still won some battles. And so I think we could be okay.
Nerd. Man, something in my throat there. No, Jermaine comes in and says, Nick talks crap the most nice and politest way. It's the Midwesterner in me. Carl has that too, though. It's the Kansas nice guy stuff. I heard him under his breath when we were hiking up Mount Whitney, for sure. I don't know if it's talking bleep or anything like that. It's just this team has a lot of questions, and the analogy I keep using is that it's kind of a game of Yahtzee, where like you have, if you roll, 6 6s or whatever, that's amazing. Denver, Jonah Ellis, he looks like really good for a 3rd round pick. He could be a Yahtzee, right? Max Crosby's a 4th round pick. Imagine if he turns into Max Crosby. That's rolling a Yahtzee. You'd have to do that over and over and over again to answer. Like, is Riley Moss going to be a great cornerback too? Is Baron Browning going to stay healthy? Is Dulcich going to stay healthy? Is Marvin Mims going to become a wide receiver too? Is Nick's going to be a top 10 quarterback? I mean, every single one of these is a Yahtzee roll. Probably not going to happen for every single one of those. That's okay though. That's okay. There's a range of outcomes that are possible, and we're going to find out as the games are played along. Michael Ronquillo says Draymond Jones and Noah Fant will play against the Broncos with the Seattle Seahawks. Yes, they will. No Shelby Harris this time to do post-game interviews or anything, but I don't wish either of those guys ill will. it's unfortunate they were in Denver during a time of struggles, right? But that's okay. We got the birthday boy Keith in here. Thanks for all the birthday wishes. Good to see you, Keith. Appreciate you coming in and talking. Yeah, Joey also says Zach Allen pretty tough on the interior defensive line. Again, I think he's very good. He might even not be a Robin. He might be a step above Robin. But I'm talking about, does Denver have anybody on the defensive front who is going to challenge for an All-Pro selection? Zach Allen might be a Pro Bowler. He might be. He's young. He's talented. He's playing a new position. You got better talent on the defensive line. I think he's very good. I love having Zach Allen. He's kind of your Malik Jackson on that line. Malik Jackson was 3rd or 4th in the pecking order behind a lot of guys. So on that talented defensive front. So again, you're happy to have him. You just need probably more. And speaking of more, talking about possible breakout candidates for the Broncos, there's going to be an opportunity for this team for a edge rusher to step up and become a guy. And the one who stands out for me, it's somebody that we've liked a lot. And it's, again, scary to say because he's not been super available. But, man, the flashes, the talent, the athleticism, it's all there. Baron Browning. Baron Browning got that number switch right out there now, wearing, I think, number 5. And he said himself, this is the first time he's been healthy entering a season in the NFL. So year 4, coming in healthy. We know that his athletic measurables compared to some of the best edge rushers in football. He's got good length. He's got a ghost move as a pass rusher. That's very great as well. So Baron Browning has a chance to end up being a very, very good pass rusher this season. I don't think he has as high of a floor as Cooper does. You're happy to have Cooper in the mix there as well. Not as much of an unknown as Ellis. Not as much of the pure pass rush profile as Benito. All guys you might talk about here. But as far as a breakout candidate, he's healthy. He's the starter. It's a contract season. And the highs from his tape look like a special player. So I'm going to go with Browning as a plausible breakout candidate for the Broncos this season.
So let me ask you this question, just because we're talking about breakouts. What is your definition of breakout?
It could be either, it depends on what they've done in the past, right? So it could be somebody who's not had an opportunity and then suddenly emerges as a good starter. I think that's a breakout. Or for Browning, It's somebody who's had flashes and now works his way into getting himself a huge contract on the market because of the position he plays, the talent he has. I don't think that he has to be a Pro Bowl caliber edge to be a breakout, considering for where he's been, but somebody who is going to be sought after, a plus player. So Browning is going to be my pick just because I think the talent is off the charts. He just has not been healthy. And also the position changes, everything like that. But I'm excited to see what Browning can do this season. And I think he could really break out. And I think if he can stay healthy, the market might show that he broke out as well.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think so. For me, it kind of depends like you said, what they've done in the past. So like I said, Riley Moss being a breakout player, to me, that means he becomes a starter quality guy because he wasn't a starter last year, proving to be at least a reliable number 2. Doesn't have to be great. Doesn't have to be Pro Bowl kind of level. But if he could be starter quality where you're going, it's not at the end of the season going, we need to replace this guy. Now, Baron Browning, because he started, it's going from starter to difference maker. Mm-hmm. So it's like you said, kind of going to that next level of what they were before. And so a guy for me, just probably right next to him there, John Franklin Myers. Like I said, he's been a quality player, but he's kind of been a rotational guy. Now he's getting that opportunity to truly start, be the man. And so I think, his high has been, I think he had 6 sacks a couple years ago with the Jets. He's always been kind of right in that 5 to 6 sack area. And I'm not saying sacks is the barometer because pressure matters a lot more. But I could see him being that double digit sack guy. The Broncos last year kind of had a bunch of guys that were like right at the 8 sack area. I think this is the year where, because they've added a couple players to that group, now we take it to that next level where we start seeing a few of these guys get to the double digit sack and really make a difference. And I think he's going to be one of those players where the Jets are going to be kicking themselves for letting him walk. And so I do. I think he's really going to take it to that next level. And I do expect one of either Zach Allen or him to get some Pro Bowl votes this year.
It'll be interesting because it's kind of a different scheme than what Salah has used out there with the Jets with John Franklin Myers, where he played a lot more heavy edge, where in Denver it's going to be much more 5 technique kind of work. And I think that has to do with more of Denver trying to utilize gap shooting up front versus the gap and a half, 2 gapping that the 49ers disciples and Salah has used out there. So will be interesting to see that transition in the defense. Been a very good underrated player for that Jets team. Less talent up front than what he had with the Jets, with a team that was, investing very heavily on the defensive front. Denver doesn't have anybody. Just follow the contract. Quinnen Williams, right? He's a difference maker. He's a plus player. I don't know if Denver has that, but Franklin Myers will be an interesting one this season to follow as well. Excited to follow along this one. We got Naj coming in and says, "Hey brothers, looking forward to seeing you guys. As an eternal optimist, I expect Sean Payton and Vance Joseph to coach us to victory. I believe Bo will outperform expectations, and the defensive line will be our strength. Here's to a healthy season." Love it, Naj. I know at the end of the last season you're starting to get a little down too, so hopefully that was not Scott and I, rubbing off on you or anything. But more excited to see you at the meet and greet. That'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully bring the positivity there. Hopefully Denver can mention at the top of the show. Denver has, I think PFF did an analysis that Denver has either the easiest or the second easiest first 8 games of the season. And they have like the hardest last 8 games. So hopefully Denver can be, riding high and the feelings can be good. And we can get that experience, building towards something before it really kicks up. But it's the NFL, man. Every game is hard. Yeah. So good to see you, Naj. Thank you so much for the support. And here's to a healthy season indeed. Speaking of healthy, you doing okay, Carl? You feeling okay?
I'm good. I'm doing actually pretty good right now because we got a lot of great questions coming in. I've got a nice distraction with all of this with you guys, so that's good. It's keeping my mind focused elsewhere.
Speaking of me feeling maybe I need to run to the restroom, my next breakout guy, coming from nothing last year, very minimal, good special teams. Kind of talked about him already, but Riley Moss has a huge opportunity in front of him now. Mathis is hurt. Levi Wallace is the break glass in case of emergency. Based on everything we've seen and heard, Chris Abrams drained. They're happy they have him, but they probably think he's a year away, strength and conditioning wise, before getting out there. This is your audition for a starting spot because if you struggle, they will replace you next year. You don't have time to be messing around, and you are going to get targeted early and often out there. Now, I think Riley Moss played opposite Desmond King for at least one season at Iowa. So that Desmond King was the Jim Thorpe winner out there at Iowa for one season. So he got targeted a lot. So freshman kind of knows what it was like to get picked on and have that short-term memory. But this is going to be a huge opportunity for him because he's fighting for a starting spot and he's fighting for the chance to be a boundary corner. There's some talk that, maybe he's a safety, maybe he's a slot. Well, boundary cornerback number 2 right now, chance to be a breakout guy. Turnovers will be huge. He's going to, like you mentioned, there'll be a few plays he's going to get beat on deep. There was the Packer game, preseason game 2, where he was beat. Wide receiver, starting caliber wide receiver, maybe comes down with that rather than whatever the Packers are tossing out on that one. Or, gosh, I don't even know the Packers wide receivers. They just keep drafting late round guys. But I got that guy from Michigan State who's really good, Reed. But either way, Riley Moss, breakout candidate, plausible. We'll see. But this is a huge opportunity for him. And man, it would be so great if Broncos could get a quality cornerback 2 on a rookie contract, somebody they traded up for, who missed a lot of last season with essentially which was a hernia, recovering from that. So big season, takeaways can be key. Riley Moss, we're on watch. Makes me nervous being an Iowa fan, right? But the last Iowa guy on that defense, Josie Jewell, stepped up. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of fans who get pretty irritated with Moss because teams are going to be targeting him. So just by a volume perspective, it's going to be like, he gave up 3 catches. Well, they threw it at him 10 times, and they're playing zone. It's going to happen. But he's a big one for me.
Yeah, I'll go the other side of the ball here. And I'm going to go actually a rookie that is not Bo Nix. And I'm going to go the 7th rounder, Devon Bailey. I think he is going to surprise people this year. He's an older guy. I think he's 26 right now. So he's not your typical rookie. He's not going to have some of the maturity growth process there. He understands that this is the process. Like he's there, he's ready. And they talked about how he looks a lot like Tim Patrick. What we saw in the preseason, what did the Broncos do? Like they went it to Tim Patrick a lot with that first string offense. And so I could see Devon Vele coming down with, let's say, 750 yards, 5 touchdowns. And for a rookie 7th rounder, that would be huge for this offense. You know, if you've got Sutton being the number 1 guy and you've got your number 2 coming down with that. And hey, this isn't unheard of with Sean Payton. He got rid of a first-round wide receiver in his very first year with the Saints. I can't remember the name of that wide receiver off the top of my head, but they drafted Marquise Colston in the 7th round. And everybody was going like, what are you doing? Like, you're getting rid of your best weapon. And all of a sudden, Colston came in as a rookie and went for over 1,000 yards and became a true number 1 wide receiver. I'm not saying Vele is going to become a number 1, but I think he could be a real quality number 2 and even show it this year.
Yeah. It will be a lot of fun to see what can happen with him. I mean, I know there's some hope that maybe he can be your Vele, but or not. God, yeah, he can be our Vele. He can be our Puka Nakua. But we'll see. We got Zebulon off subject. What's the bad history Bo has in Seattle? Everyone talks about. Did he lose to Washington College? I was at that game. Bo played fine. They drove him down the field at the end, and the kicker shanked it. Penix, I think, outplayed him in that game, but Bo played fine. And I think the Oregon offensive line was a huge plus for them as well. They pretty much ran as they wanted to. A lot of positive opportunities for Bo. But he's lost to Washington, the Huskies, 3 times in the last 2 years, but only once in Seattle. Once was the Pac-12 championship in Vegas. Lost to the Huskies in Oregon 2 years ago, and then last season lost 2 blocks from me, south of here, out there at Husky Stadium. So I mean, is that bad history? I don't know. I don't think so. But has lost to the Huskies.
If I remember right, is it that he hasn't even won in the state of Washington? I can't remember.
Did they lose to Washington State too? I mean, I don't know. Washington State has some feisty teams, but
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head here. But anyway, I know that was one of my favorite games last year to watch. I watched that one live, then I've watched it about 3 or 4 times more since we were getting ready for the draft and everything. That battle between Penix and Nix going back and forth. I mean, one team would be down by a touchdown, quarterback march down, score, get him back into it. And it was incredible. I think you saw some of the best from both of those guys. Like I said, I think Penix ended up outplaying him, but you could argue maybe that Penix had a little bit more talent too, you know, with 3 great wide receivers, that offensive line. I'm not saying Oregon had nothing. I'm just saying maybe just a little bit more. They are close. And so this would be a big win for him to go into Seattle, get that monkey off his back of being able to win in that, it wouldn't be in that stadium, but in that city.
Yeah. And Bo Nix did win in Pullman. Yeah, I threw for 428 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception 2 years ago against the Cougs of the Pac-2, if you will. We got David coming in. I'm very hopeful Bo Nix will be able to get us a playoffs, which would make him a breakout player. Yeah, hell yeah. He'd be a breakout player if Denver got to the playoffs. My expectation is not playoffs, so I won't be disappointed if they, only win 7 games this season, but we're looking for positive trajectory with the team, and considering how many just second year Sean Payton, the dead cap that Denver has to deal with this season. Hopefully this last draft, we can finally get all our picks back. And this last one looks pretty good right now before the season started. Everybody thinks that right now about their draft classes, right? But I'm pretty excited about Ellis and Nix for being the quarterback 6 drafted. Seems like he's going to be pretty good. So next breakout guy for me, Carl, I'm going to go with somebody who a lot of Broncos country wasn't ready to embrace. Seems like we're sticking in the Pacific Northwest here. Everybody wanted Alex Forsythe, but it is Luke Wattenberg who is the starting center, and I will have some questions about him, but I am very confident in Chris Cooper as the offensive line coach, and I think Wattenberg has shown more mobility in the run game and pass game. Just looks a little bit more fluid and coordinated in space than what we saw from Cushenberry. Now, Cushenberry, very smart, good at picking up twists and stunts and everything. Did a lot better last season anchoring when guys got under his pads. It was because he had always the high-waisted kind of stuff. So it's hard for him to win the leverage battle sometimes as a center, which is not great, but much better than last year. Obviously got paid, but I think Wattenberg's going to be pretty good there. He's surrounded by 2 highly paid guards, 2 tackles. I think they're going to use a lot of heavy stuff as well, but I think Wattenberg's going to end up being a very good player. This is what, year 3 in the NFL. So that kind of typically takes most of the time 2 or 3 years for centers to kind of get it going here. And there was never a question from the start. I mean, I know a lot of Broncos country. Oh, Alex Forsyth was the center for Bo Nix, so he's got to be the guy. They took him. What a steal. He's still here. Fine with Forsyth, but from the beginning, Wattenberg was the number 1. Not too much of a battle there. So I think he's going to be good. Now, what is a breakout? If he can just be a average starter at center on that rookie contract, that's good ROI. And I think that qualifies as a breakout. And we wanted to give an offensive line shout out. I don't know if anybody else really qualifies as a breakout, but Wattenberg deserves a shout in my opinion.
Yeah. And I did just see a few people are saying that we're bashing on Nix in this show. We haven't hardly actually talked about him a lot today. We're cautiously optimistic, I guess is the best way to say it. I think there's some good promising things for the future. Him and Peyton, I do expect them to be a good relationship. There's obviously any rookie coming in. If we had Caleb Williams, I'd be saying I'm cautiously optimistic of what he could be for the Broncos moving forward. It just, any rookie, that's the way you're going to be. If we had Patrick Mahomes his rookie season, I'd be like, okay, well, he's got this, and this going for him, but I have these questions about him. It's just because you don't know. No rookie do you know that they're going to be this great player. So I just want to put that out there. We're trying to give you all sides of everything that we're thinking with this, and not just be the rah Broncos, everything's great, because it hasn't been great. I do expect better. I do believe in Sean Payton as the head coach. There's just, like I said, there's still many questions for this team. You said it, the Yahtzee roll.
Yep.
Yeah, you're seeing good, and you hope for good, but they haven't actually shown it on the field like you'd want them to. You're talking about Wattenberg. That's what we're talking about, breakout players. We're talking about them doing something that they haven't done before.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, he could definitely be a breakout player. Right now, if I was a betting man, I'd put him 3rd in the rookie of the year conversation because he has one thing that both Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams don't, and that's an offensive-minded coach. I do think there's going to be some cohesion there that you don't have otherwise. As far as making excuses for Bo, I feel like, I don't know. I don't know if it's the other way around, but I feel like the offense is not totally set up personnel wise for him to be successful. So I'll be in here saying well, he made the right read, but Marvin Mims couldn't hold on to the ball. Right. What can you do? Want to be fair about it as well,
right.
But we'll see. The one thing that's kind of come out the last week, now that Bo Nix has won the job from Daniel Jeremiah to Nick Wright, even it's okay. Well, Bo Nix is going to come in. He's going to be great, but he's going to fool everybody. It's going to be Mac Jones, where he came in, he was ready day one, but what's his ceiling? He's already at his ceiling. So I think that's a Nick Wright conversation. Yeah. We'll see. I'm really excited to see what he can do. And I think that the frame with the athleticism is going to be a big part of the offense as well. When you have questions about the weapons on the outside, right? Maybe it's going to be a little bit of ingenuity and creativity with the run game. I mean, we kind of already saw that. Sean Payton, not really a big RPO guy, but we did see aspects of that against the Colts. So we'll be excited to see what he can do there. Do you have another breakout guy here? Obviously, I went Wattenberg there, 2 on defense, 1 on offense there. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll go one more. I do this every year, and he fools me. I'm going to do it one more time. I'll go Greg Dulcich.
Oh God, I hope.
I know, right. Man. I had to say it. I've seen a few people say, yeah, we need our Jimmy Graham, and you're right. The Broncos need a couple playmakers that can emerge into something more than what they've shown. And Greg Dulcich, I think, has a decent chance. Obviously, he has to be healthy, but he's athletic. He's got pretty good hands. He has nuance to his game that some of these other guys are missing. I love his change of direction, his ability to change gears. He knows how to use that. And the little bit that we've got to see him, I've seen him really fool some linebackers and safeties where it's kind of like slow, also boom, take off. And it catches him off guard. And for Bo Nix to really have that successful rookie season, that he's going to need one of those guys, or Marvin Mims, Josh Reynolds. You're talking about that the Broncos don't have some of the weapons. Josh Reynolds, his best season has been just a little over 600 yards, and you're asking him to be your number 2. And he's been in the league a long time. So I don't think he's all of a sudden going to become something more than what he's already shown. Maybe the Sean Payton offense gives him a little bit of a boost, but he had a good coordinator with Detroit and some great weapons around him to take pressure off of him. So I expect probably he's going to be a 600-yard kind of guy. But if you can get Greg Dulcich with a 800-yard, 8-touchdown kind of season, like that's what can take this offense to that next level, where teams are having to worry about him in the middle of the field. That opens things up for Sutton, Josh Reynolds, Vele. It even opens up the run game, where they're going to have to be on their heels a little bit we don't want this guy running by us going down the field on a seam route. And, but if you're not worried about the tight ends, a lot of those linebackers can really pin their ears back and just say, nope, let's go take care of the run game. And so, like I said, the Broncos, it's not just that I hope that he emerges. The Broncos absolutely need him to emerge as a good tight end.
Yeah. And we got Report coming and saying Parham sniffing around too. So Denver went out there. He's one of the ones to keep an eye on for sure. Because if Dulcich goes down, I mean, it's Kroll, Parham, Atkins, a different player, Troutman, kind of a different player. But should be really exciting here. Did want to give out one more shout out here, Carl. I know that we're already at 7:02 Mountain Time. We got to get going. I know we're might be on a countdown for you. But is it fair to say, can we have a re-breakout? Probably outside of Bo Nix, maybe the second most important player on the Broncos for a singular season, not big picture, not long-term, but the singular season, Javonte Williams. I mean, the Broncos went after Josh Jacobs in the offseason. You have Estime is a huge question mark. McLaughlin, really fast player. I mean, pretty good between the tackles too, but the protection, the receiving game, question marks still. Sean Payton loves to utilize the running backs. This is going to be a team that runs the ball a lot. Yep. Another guy, contract year, Javonte Williams, man, a re-breakout would be so huge for this team. I don't expect he doesn't have to be the best running back in the NFL, but can we see better vision and pacing, and can we regain some of that tackle breaking ability that we saw before the catastrophic knee injury? Broncos country, Dove Valley, they've been saying kind of looks closer to the old guy. But man, I mean, it was a miracle that he even played last season at all, considering the significance of the injury. I didn't expect him to even play. And the fact that he was played week 1 is honestly just a testament of modern science and his determination and work ethic as well. But Javonte Williams, I'm manifesting this one. Re-breakout candidate. Denver needs him. And if he can go on and be a top 10 running back this season, with how they invested the offensive line, with the lack of difference makers at depth pass catching wise, I'm excited for Cortland Sutton, good player. I'm glad Denver didn't trade him. But Javonte Williams, re-breakout. I'm manifesting this one.
You're right. I think he, like I said, not just in the run game, but his ability in the pass game. It wouldn't surprise me if he had 40 catches by the end of the year. And we're talking 400 or 500 yards receiving. Yeah. And like I said, if he can break a couple tackles, the Sean Payton system, I think one of the best things about him as a coordinator, he's great in the pass game, but he understands the run game matters a lot. Like you see some of these great offensive coordinators that they have great passing attacks, and then the run game is like, oh yeah, I guess we can run it a few times. No, he really does care deeply about the running attack. And so if Javonte can make that one guy miss, you were talking about explosive plays in the run game to win this first game. That's how you do that.
Yep. We got Naj coming in here. Carl, we're not going to see you again until after the game. So I'm going to give you the floor here. First play of the game for the Broncos offense. What are you predicting?
I'm going to say on offense, because they might not get the ball first.
Yeah.
I'm going to predict I'm going to go RPO right off the bat.
Okay.
I think just to get Bo Nix into kind of a little bit of a rhythm, hit him with some of those quick passing attack, get him a couple of easy completions or easy reads where it's, hey, I'm keying off this one guy. I'm not even have to make full free field reads. What is this guy doing? Is he crashing down? Is he coming towards me? And hit Sutton on a slant route. That's going to be my guess for play number 1. RPO, hit Sutton for a slant route, 7-yard gain. And that'll really get him fired up that, hey, play 1 was a successful play.
For me, I'm going to go zone read, QB keeper option there, because a lot of quarterbacks say the game doesn't even start until they get hit. Not even put the ball in the air on the first one. It's probably going to be a handoff in that regard, but as you mentioned, reading one guy, maybe kind of quieting down the fans as well. So just letting him, get physical on that first one. So we'll see. And as far as a game prediction, what's the score? What's it going to be?
Like I said, I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring game. I think it's actually going to be Broncos win 21-17. Are you going to make your prediction today, or are you
hold you to that, waiting? Carl? Hopefully my internet did. I'm going to wait until tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got a little bit more time to think about it. Also, if I said 21-17 again, maybe I'll steal your answer. Yeah. They like that from Tim, but it would have been more poetic if you said the Super Bowl 48 score on that one. Maybe it's 43-8 Broncos. How about we go with that one?
That would be, man, I would probably cry happy tears if that was happened. Just it almost erase the pain from that game. I mean, it's a Super Bowl, so it's never going to erase it completely. Yeah. But to come out and do that, it's kind of like the Ravens losing in 2012 the way we did. And then that next year opening game, Peyton Manning goes out and throws 7 touchdowns against them. Man, it didn't erase it all, because that team should have won the Super Bowl. Broncos should have had 2 Super Bowls during the Manning era. But it did definitely at least make me feel a little bit better about how that game went out.
New era Broncos football, folks. Exciting times. We'll see what happens. Make sure you're following Carl and I on Twitter. Carl's at Carl Dumler MHH. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, we're over on Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. Check us out over there. And if you're joining us on YouTube today, please subscribe to Mile High Huddle, like this show, and share on your social media platforms. Shout out to all the star givers today: Troy Boer, David McElrath, of course, Phil McLaughlin a few times, Michael Ronquillo, Dennis Woods, Eric Flynn, of course, Naj, good to see as well, David Wilder. If we missed anybody, it's Scott's fault. He has, other things to do. But appreciate you guys. We're going to see what the season brings. Excited. There feels to be a lot of positive momentum and direction in Broncos country. So we'll be here every Tuesday night and breaking it down with you guys. But until then, make sure you continue to choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.